Okay, now we'll go back and solve the equations here for the exact roots. And remember, exact means that you don't work out your square roots to decimals. It's got to be, if it can't be worked out as a perfect square, you leave it alone. As you see it, you just simplify the radical. So I'll just carry forward here. And negative b plus or minus b squared subtract 4ac all over 2a square root, and ignore that little stroke there. So negative b, negative and negative 8, plus or minus, oops, negative 8 squared. I could have left the other value there, would have saved us some time since we worked this out already. And square root all over 2 times a. So 8 plus or minus 64 subtract 20 square root all over 2a. I'll just carry that over here. Oops, not 2a, it's 2 times 2. So 8 plus or minus square root of 44 oh sorry, that's 40, my mistake. 40, and we end up with 24 there. All over 4. And by looking at this here, we know, like, this discriminant still stayed the same because we still worked out this calculation here. We know that you should get 2 roots. Trick now is to resolve or work that down. Now, 24, the biggest perfect square in 24. You have 4 times 6. There's no other perfect square within 24. 8, yeah, that's the biggest one. So you have 8 plus 4 times 6 divided by 4. 8 plus or minus. You can only do the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. You cannot do the square root of 6. So it stays there. Divide that by 4. Each of these numbers here now, the 8, the 6, and the 4, the 8, the 6, and the 4 can each be divided by 2. So you would end up with 2 plus or minus square root 6 all over 2. So you divide each of these numbers by 2, and this way you will be left with. And this is an exact answer. Alright, to save time now, I'm going to set up each equation here, 2, 3, and 4, just by putting the numbers in. And then I'll come back to you. Now, for each of these equations, 2, 3, and 4, I filled the numbers into the quadratic function for each of them here. And now, so if you're having difficulty following it, what we expect you to do, give it a try, see if you can put in the values where they belong. So I'll do each of these step by step, and I'll pause in between each one. And if there's a question, then send me an email or come back and ask me. Now, simplifying each of these, negative and negative is a positive 2. 2 squared is 4. Negative times a negative. Positive 4 times 2 is 8. Times 3 is 24. All divided by 4. here. Negative and negative becomes positive. Negative 6 squared. Negative times a negative is a positive. And 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. And everything's then divided by 2. And then very similar over here. Negative times a negative, you get a positive 2. Negative 2 squared. Negative times a negative is a positive. Multiply that to a negative again, and it stays negative. And 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24. I'll divide by negative 6. So with the next step, or so now, I'll just about have these solved. Okay, now we're almost solved. The discriminant here is 28, which would tell us we should have 2 roots. And we've seen that from our last video. We know here we should have, or should not be able to get any roots, because this value is less than 0. Here we will expect to see 2 roots, because the discriminant is 48. Now to finish solving each of these, factors of 28 are 7 times 4. So 4 is the biggest perfect square in 28. So we look at it this way, 2 plus or minus 4 times 7 all over 4. And you would have 2 plus or minus. Square root of 4 is 2. You can't do the square root of 7. All divided by 4. And then the 2, and this 2, and 4 can all be divided by 2. So you would have 1 plus or minus 1 root 2 all over 2. So this is your answer in that case. Come back here. .48 is 16 times 3. And you would 6 plus or minus 16 times 3 all divided by 2. So 16 times 3 all divided by 2. So 6 plus or minus. Square root of 16 is 4. You cannot do the square root of 3. All divided by 2. So every number here is divided by 2. These numbers here are all divided by 2. 3 plus or minus 2 divided by 2, root 3. And we do get 2 answers. This one we cannot work out, because if you try to do the square root of a negative sign or a negative number, you find that there's no solution for that, so it can't be solved, which means there are not any roots. And we said that